Welcome to the Daily Space Weather, folks. I be your host, Dan, aka smAsho. We're starting things out looking at the sun, the most important star in cosmology, in 171 angstroms to see 0 sunspots. Active region down here, known as a plage, not to be confused with a plague. And here's the 193 angstroms view. South Pole coronal hole still looking huge, large, and in charge. Diffuse coronal hole regions north of that active region. And let's go to Helio Viewer and look at some fields. Actually, first let's talk about the solar cycles, as Solon.info has updated its information. So perhaps, if you like, check out Solon.info/solar to see that cycle 25 has begun. There's the projected value shown on the green line, and that looks like the solar minimum, exactly as our channel forecasted, having started in somewhere like August or perhaps September. Not to brag, but there you go. Once again, another forecast correct here on the smAsho channel. And by the way, thanks for viewing it on BitChute. If you're viewing the videos over there, the success over there on BitChute is wild. And thanks everybody for viewing the videos there. As we see YouTube views decline, I thought I would care, but it turns out I don't. Here are the fields in 171 angstroms, as well as magnetogram. And you can see there is some magnetic polarity complexity associated with that plage. And yes, indeed, it's another cycle 25 behavior. Next, we'll look at the North Pole region, as we see some large filaments up in the northwest. I forgot to put it on loop, folks. I apologize. Anyway, there's that filamentary dance in the northwest portion, as well as a nice view of the north solar polar region. And we've also got a similar view of the south. And there's that. And blow that up as big as we possibly can. I'll let that play through a second time so you can see the activity of former sunspot 2758. And here's where stuff is located in the solar system, if you were wondering. There's where things will be in a week. I like to use theplanetstoday.com, a great site where you can visualize the solar system in all kinds of different views, like the geocentric view or the astrologic view or whatever. We'll be making a live stream at the time of the equinox, at the exact moment, indeed. So we'll be streaming live to Twitch as well as to YouTube for some reason, as we do it during all solstices and equinoxes on this channel. So check us out then, 7 days and 19 hours from now. Here's where stuff is in the sky. I like to use in-the-sky.org to make star charts, put in your location, and find out when Mars will rise over your horizon, perhaps. Or maybe you're wondering when Deneb rose and why it's relevant. Maybe that's why you watch our channel. I really don't have any idea, as there are various reasons that we make the videos. Here's some more data. It's a KP index, which is currently at 2. 10.7 centimeter radio flux, still at 71 solar flux units. And if you're wondering why auroras are most likely to occur in March, it has to do with the southward component of the interplanetary magnetic field. If you want to read about it, this paper is from 1973. We'll leave links below the video. X-ray flux is flatlined except for this B-class flare that was shown in the GOES 16 long wave. kind of odd. It probably came out of that active region. We're not going to really worry about it. We are going to look at cosmic rays today. So first, here is Apatity and Barentsburg neutron monitors. There are both 30-day graphs displayed at once. Pretty flat over the past 30 days. Next, we'll check out Athens, which showed this odd 40% decline in neutrons detected there. Otherwise, flat over the past 30 days as well. Next, Mexico City. It looks like we just got a little spike there in the activity at Mexico City in the past 8 hours. So a small uptick there in the recent past at Mexico City. And next we've got Moscow, which is back to sending data. And we saw an odd spike there also back on the 27th, I believe it was. And that's now no longer shown up in the data, possibly indicating some sort of an anomaly there. Not exactly sure what happened, but at least they're back to sending data. And there is the past 30 days at Moscow. And lastly, Oulu, Finland, the city that says, stop, don't touch me there, this is my neutron square. Slight downtick there at Oulu over the past 30. DOMB not sending data. DOMC looking flat over the past 30 as well. By the way, we always include the Network of Cosmic Ray Stations site below our videos. Monitor them yourself. Don't take our word for it. And let us know if you see anything weird. Here's the real-time solar wind data. And we see the phi angle has shifted since midnight up into the high 360 range. Solar wind density has recently dropped down to 8.78 protons per cubic centimeter, and a small uptick in the past 5 hours for the solar wind has brought it up off the floor to 343 kilometers a second, and it got all the way down to the low 300s. As that's where it was yesterday when we did the space weather. Here's the ACE data, looking corroborative. Here's the magnetohydrodynamic pressure of the Geospace Magnetosphere movie. Nothing too exciting happening there, but we archive the data daily anyway, as it is not yet accessible in archive form from University of Michigan. However, we appreciate these magnetosphere movies anyway. And here's the Geospace ground magnetic perturbations. When you see delta, folks, that means change. So we're talking about changes in the Earth's B field. The B field is the field that goes through the magnet. Geospace delta B, changes in the Earth's magnetic field. Now, I don't know if you're aware, you're living through a geomagnetic excursion where the South Pole is creeping towards southwestern Australia. And there are 2 poles in the north, one over Siberia, one over northern Canada, and the net pole is somewhere over here east of Greenland, quite close to the geographic North Pole. And anyway, nothing too exciting happening there, but we archive the data anyway. Now, the GOES 15 not sending magnetometer data, and I'm going to explain why we see this extremely low level, all the way down to nearly 40 nanotesla there, measured by the GOES 16. I'm going to show you what's causing that on the Gong 2 real quick, just for all you viewers that want to understand the magnetohydrodynamics, as I've been looking at this very in-depth for a long time. And here's what's causing that little downtick there. And what it is, here's the last frame. It's this region right here where you can see kind of a denser plasma there in the corona. That blocks the sun's magnetic field, as plasma has the ability to prevent magnetometers from getting a proper reading on the field. And anyway, I'll just play that again for you here, put that back into a loop mode. This is the top view ecliptic plane field plot, as if you're looking down on the sun from the North Pole. And we'll see continued spikiness in the GOES magnetometer. As you can see, there are dense areas of coronal plasma and diffuse areas of coronal plasma right next to each other. And that's what's causing the spikiness in the GOES magnetometer. Here's a line of sight field plot. Nothing too exciting happening there either, so let's move on to more stuff. Electrons are at very low levels. There are the relativistic electrons from the Solon.info data. And here is the GOES 16 and 15, and the GOES 15 is not even sending anything. And the GOES 16 is totally cratered here. This should pop up in the next 48 hours or so, folks. And here is the total electron content forecast. And you should see very low levels there. And even if you're on the equator at noon, you should have maybe less than 50 meters of GPS error. Here's the ionosphere movie, courtesy of Australian Government Bureau of Meteorology. This is 6 hours of data. And everything's looking pretty normal there in the ionosphere. Nothing too exciting happening there to comment on, so let's move on. Actually, here's the latest image. And a little bit of a charge up in the South Pacific, as we continue to see for the last pushing 3 months. By the way, thanks to our patrons, the real source of financial support for our operation. We need a lot more support to continue on with our mission and keep these videos going, as every day we consider pulling all of our content from YouTube permanently. We're also on Subscribestar, so if you want to support us there. There are different tiers. The tiers on Patreon are $1 and $9.99 a month, and the tier on Subscribestar is currently at $3 per month, and we are considering changing all of that stuff around regularly as we see our YouTube views declining. So yesterday's Daily Space Weather didn't even reach 100 views, and yesterday's Cosmology segment didn't even reach 51 views. So pathetic numbers on YouTube. Thanks to everybody who does watch there. Also consider subscribing on Twitch, as that is where we typically do our serious live streams, since the Twitch platform is vastly superior to the YouTube, Alphabet, Google junkware platform. So check us out there. The Twitch platform is fantastic for streaming, and there'll be gaming videos and all kinds of stuff coming from there. And thanks most of all to our BitChute viewers. The views over here are vastly, vastly, vastly superior to YouTube. And this is a silver lining, thanks to our latest subscriber over there at BitChute. And let's talk about Mr. MBB333. Dear viewers, you may want to email this guy, because we've got some Nibiru photos for you. And pardon my sarcasm, if you'd like to email Mr. MBB333, just send it to reports@MrMBB333.com. Now, he's got like 300,000 subscribers on YouTube, and it's because he takes photographs of the sun that people send him, and he goes, OMG, look, it's Nibiru, because he doesn't know what lens flare is. So we've put up a bunch of photos yesterday about solar spectra. Now, this is through a windshield, which actually causes additional refraction of the solar spectra. But look at what crazily happened. You see Nibiru's up here on this side of the sun. And then, by the final photo, Nibiru has suddenly rotated down to this part of the sun. Oh my gosh! Please send Mr. MBB333 an email and let him know about our Instagram page, because that guy is like on the cutting edge of Earth science, and he's totally taken a single photography course in his entire life. And by the way, follow us on other alt tech like Minds.com. It's Minds.com/smAsho, the alternative to Facebook, where we're approaching 600,000 views. And we've actually just put another link to our coronavirus section, which has recently been declared a global pandemic by the World Health Organization. And we're going to get into it in a minute. First, let's look at the pressure maps here on windy.com. We're going to let that advance via the GFS forecast. And there's where we expect things to be at 1 p.m. tomorrow on Friday the 13th. And next we'll do the earthquake rundown. We don't see anything over a 6 magnitude quake. Let's buzz through this. There's a deep quake at Chile. It's 100 kilometers and a 4.6 magnitude. It's basically an earthquake lull. Here's a quake which looks like it's out in the ocean at 100 meters above sea level, so that probably caused by an alien spacecraft. Again, please email Mr. MBB333 about that, because he's so smart and so insightful. Pardon the sarcasm. Here is, so it's a lull in earthquakes, basically, folks. Nothing over a 6 magnitude. What's this one? There's a 5.1 at Indonesia. And we saw a quake in New York here. Here's a deep one at Romania. That one coming in at 2023 Universal Time and a 4.4 magnitude. Please leave a comment if that's because Dracula is summoning demons from hell and causing earthquakes as they head up. There's one in the Greenland Sea extremely far north. Let's take a quick look at that location, as it's an odd spot for a quake. And there's where that one is, very close to the geomagnetic net pole of the north. And again, super far north quake. And back to the list we go. If you're in an earthquake-prone area, please have a plan. And there's that quake that hit south of Glen Falls, New York. It's a 3.1 magnitude. And let's check out that location real quick, as it's close to my neighborhood. If you're wondering where I'm located, folks, it's in eastern PA, around that area, in the Lehigh Valley. Anyway, there's where that quake happened, north of Albany, New York. And that was yesterday, very shortly after we did our daily space weather video. Let's talk about human health and pandemics. The common house cat is a pandemic of the destruction of wildlife, and it's a perfect example of human filth and pollution, as this study tracked house cats using GPS and cited how much damage they do to the environment. Keep your freaking house cat inside the freaking house, or it's going to return with an arrow sticking out of it, most likely. As the wildlife, which innately lives in these environments, does not deserve to be tortured to death by your stupid ass house cat, which is massively endangered by being allowed to be outside. Now, if you have a farm, I get it. There's a reason to have cats. All right, that's a work animal. This isn't the same thing we're talking about. We're talking about the ecological pest known as house cats that people allow to go roam their neighborhood. Your neighbors may have bird feeders. Your neighbors may have crossbows and other things. So if your cat returns with an arrow sticking out of it, just be glad that it's a field tip, because if it was a broadhead, your cat wouldn't be returning home, period. Welcome to the Neo-Renaissance, folks. Have you headed to smashomash.org? If you scroll down, there's a link to the web forum right here. So check that out, perhaps. And let's talk about the deadliness of coronavirus. Were you aware that H5N1 had a 52% mortality rate? Were you aware that Ebola has a 40% mortality rate? Were you aware that Marburg virus had an 80% mortality rate? I mean, Ebola caused 13,000 deaths back in 1976. And this is one of the issues. So anyway, the World Health Organization has declared COVID-19 a pandemic. We picked up an extremetech.com article here on the smashomash.com/forum coronavirus thread. If you want to read all about it, it's pushing 10 pages. Let me just read my latest statement. Truly deadly viruses have higher mortality rates. If we learn that 1 billion people had COVID-19, that means the mortality rate is 1/10 of the, quote, seasonal flu, end quote. We've included an image, source sciencealert.com, showing the truly deadly diseases and their very high mortality rates. I'm unconvinced by all the fear-mongering and attempts to gain views, subscriptions, crash financial markets intentionally, make a global pandemic about politics, etc. Everybody and their uncle is making insane claims across the board, and ultimately your actual defense should be exactly the same as always. Vigilance, a healthy lifestyle, hand washing, and other measures to lower your risk of catching any infection should be your standard behavior. How many people are infected right now with 0 symptoms? We'll never know. But we can't wait until millions of test kits are utilized to get some real data about the denominator. And when we say denominator, what we mean is we don't know how the mortality rate is, as we don't know how many cases there are, as there are not enough tested people, and there probably won't be. The factors that are absolutely not understood and relevant is the mortality rate, the transmissibility, how transmissible is COVID-19, and can your average healthy person naturally defeat it with no medical intervention? And thanks to everybody contributing and reading our brand new web forums. Feel free to interact. You're all invited. It's completely free. We're interested in your viewpoint. And thanks. Here's the current state of affairs in graphical form. And we see that yellow graph is still leveling out. We don't see a big spike in the yellow graph or the orange graph. Orange graph being cases in China, yellow graph being cases outside of China. Total confirmed cases, 126,258. No data on recoveries. Oh my goodness. Oh my God. Total deaths, 4,638. Something to keep an eye on. And when I say eye on, well, that has nothing to do with it. Next we'll look at volcanoes. And hopefully those won't turn into human health stories as people get hit by molten lava. Kluchevskoy is exploding, producing a 20,000-foot ash plume. So is Mount Aso, 6,000-foot plume there. Sakurajima, 11,000-foot plume there. Tokono, flight level 7,000 there as it explodes. Popocatépetl, flight level 22,000. Santiaguito back on the list. Weak explosions, producing a 3,000-foot plume of ash. Pacaya, back on the list. And some incandescent material exploding above the equator there. Crater, rather, not the equator. Mount Fuego, weak explosions producing a 15,000-foot plume. Doesn't seem weak to me. Sangay exploding. Flight level 24,000 there. Revenador exploding. 15,000-foot ash plume there. And continuous emissions from Sabancaya producing a 25,000-foot plume of ash as it explodes. Please do not attempt to pole vault the caldera at Sabancaya. Here's the jet streams of the Western world. We see doubled up jet streams over the central U.S. as well as over the Atlantic Ocean. By the way, thanks to our Brazilian and other South American viewers. Holla! As we are an intercontinental channel. Here's the Eastern world. And we see big-time doubled-up jet streams as well as a very odd low-pressure vortex there north of India. And some extreme doubled-up jet stream flow in the southern hemisphere as well. Next, we'll look at water vapor maps. Here is Europe and Africa. Here is the Far East and Oceania. And here's the U.S. water vapor map. And we've got an upper level low here causing a pressure inversion over the central Colorado region. Let's take a close-up. And there's a situation there, and you can see that warmer, less massive air moving over the top of the drier, more massive air. So that's going to be creating probably some violent wind and stuff and some interesting cloud formations over central Colorado right in this region. And that's because this water vapor is high in the sky, and that dry air is not as high. And as it moves over it, that's called a temperature-pressure gradient, temperature-pressure inversion, rather. And if you're flying north to south through there, there will be some extreme turbulence in those regions. Next, we'll look at the U.S. Doppler radar map. And here's the lightning map. I like to use lightningmaps.org. It's super good. And let's get into bonus features. But first, let me thank the smAsh team for joining us, leaving comments, going to smashomash.com/forum, setting up logins, being patrons, pressing like and subscribe, sharing on your social media, and all that sort of stuff. Here comes some bonus features. Were you aware that there's a very large exoplanet where the nighttime side features molten iron rain? Yeah. It's one of these extreme exoplanets noted with the Very Large Telescope. And this ultra-hot giant exoplanet Temperatures rise to 2400 degrees Celsius, which causes iron to vaporize, and then it rains down as night falls. I'm not sure what the full pressure gradient is on this planet, but a perfect example of heavy elements in a planet's atmosphere as opposed to in a planet's core, as we see no observational evidence whatsoever of iron in the cores of things like stars or planets. So when people try to come up with ridiculous ideas online, here's yet another article that debunks them, as we see heavy elements in things like the atmospheres of stars, but we don't see it in the centers of stars because we can't see the centers of stars. However, it does appear that heavy elements get created in the atmospheres of stellar behavior. Another prime example of iron on the surface. And we'll leave links to the SciTech Daily article about this extreme exoplanet where it rains molten iron. You'll hear all about it on the internet all day, and people will make all kinds of crazy, crazy theories about how this happens. We'll just stick with the data. Next, we're showing you the intensity gram of the local yellow dwarf to show you no sunspots. Secondly, here's the magnetogram, and there's the current state of affairs with this plage, former sunspot 2758. Looks like it's degraded a little bit since yesterday, but there's still some significant field complexity going on there. Also, there is one region to watch, and that's right here. Could turn into another cycle 25 plage or perhaps a sunspot. Keep in mind the magnetic environment changes with zero warning. And for our final bonus feature, we're looking at the local yellow dwarf in 131 angstroms. Keep in mind, folks, the sun is the Rosetta Stone of the rest of cosmology, which is why we strive to understand the real behavior of it, the real observation of it, and its internal workings, magnetic fields, etc. Also, its spectral emissions, kind of important in the realm of cosmology. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Remember, stare at the sun, use the proper instruments, don't drink, and if you do, don't drive. Check out smashamash.com/forum. Consider becoming a patron and ensuring the possibility that these videos will continue to exist on all platforms. And since it'll never be now again, may the solar wind be at your back.